morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, June 1st, and this is our morning drive live. So, we have to take a different route to the office this morning because of a traffic jam on the highway, which will give us an extra minute or two. So, I wanted to talk today about something that is incredibly important for any business, and that is dealing with problematic employees, because every business at one point or another will have a problem with an employee, with a team member, that will need to be dealt with. And, we talked last week about reviews and, doing performance reviews and whatnot. And I thought this was a very important topic, something that really should be discussed, because it all starts at the beginning. It starts from day one with every single one of your employees, every single one of your team members. And when I say it starts at day one, I mean what is probably the most important aspect of dealing with any problem employee, and that is documentation. Having the right documentation is incredibly important when you're dealing with any employee. And for me, that starts with the employee handbook. So I see a lot of people posting in different groups talking about, does anybody have an employee handbook sample, or can you send me yours so I can just change the name of the practice, a handbook you're happy with? And there are a couple reasons why that is problematic. Number one, rules can vary from state to state, but even within the states, from county to county or parish to parish, depending on where you're at. For example, in Pennsylvania, the vast majority of counties have the same rules. They follow the state guidelines as far as paid time off and family leave and health insurance and minimum wage and all of the other rules. However, we have two counties in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia and Allegheny, that have different rules. The state of Pennsylvania doesn't require a mandatory break. There's no mandatory 1 hour lunch break or anything like that. But Philadelphia County does. So, you have to make sure your documentation is up to date and accurate for your county, for your specific location. I mean, it can even get to the point of townships or cities having specific rules regarding employees. So you really have to ensure that your documentation is key, that your handbook will say what rules your team is expected to follow, and they have to be applied equally across all team members. You can't say, well, this employee is my favorite, so I'll let her break the rules, but everybody else, I'm going to have to enforce it. It has to be applied evenly across the board. And, step one of doing that is honestly where I see most businesses failing across the board, and that is failure to communicate your expectations with your team. And, this goes for everything, not just the rules that are in your handbook, not just what is expected of them, but actual performance expectations. And, what you expect them to do every day has to be clearly defined. And for me, again, that begins with the employee handbook, making sure everybody receives it, making sure everybody has read it, and making sure everybody understands what is in it. You don't want it to be like, yep, here's your handbook, read it when and if you have the time, whatever you'd like to do. I personally, in my offices, we use Trainual, which is a video walkthrough testing system. If you haven't heard of it, you're not familiar with it, we use it for a lot of training within the office. And that requires that they walk through all of the steps in order to complete that module. And once they've completed that module, then their supervisor, their direct manager, my HR person, or myself, depending on their position, will get an email saying such and such has completed this section. So we really get a good idea of what they've done, what they've read, and you can even do testing to make sure they understand it. That's a big part of what we do training when we're dealing with a billing specialist coming in to take care of sending claims and calling on outstanding claims for our clients. I make sure they've gone through that training process and understand my systems and the way we do things. So you want to make sure you're doing that. You want to make sure you're applying the rules across the board. But then the next step to that is really documentation. You want to make sure you are documenting everything. People are very hesitant to give written warnings, to give verbal warnings, but it's a necessary thing. It's something that we absolutely have to do in order to ensure that we have our documentation lined up and ready for whatever may come after the fact. And the other thing I will say is we all know who the problem employee is in our office if we have one. And in my experience, you are always better cutting that employee the minute you realize they are not a fit. End their employment, because it's not going to get better. I see a lot of people who will say, well, maybe I can try and save them, maybe I can change them, maybe I can fix them. And in my experience, you know what? If it's a performance issue, they're not meeting the number of calls I expect a day, or something like that, I absolutely, with more training, with more skill polishing, with more working directly with them, I very well could help them get to the level that I expect if I've clearly told them what level I expect from them. However, if it's an attitude problem, if it's a gossip problem, if it's a untrainable problem, you can't train people for work ethic. They either have it or they don't. You can't train people for their desire to succeed. They either have it or they don't. And if one of those things, work ethic, attitude, gossip, troublemaker, whatever it may be, if that's the reason you're thinking in your head, I wonder if I should get rid of this employee, you should. I tell everybody, the minute you think, I wonder if I should get rid of this employee, it's actually past time for when you should have gotten rid of them. So, you want to make sure you maintain that, because I will tell you, nothing demotivates a motivated team more than watching someone who is not motivated, who doesn't share the company vision, continuing to be unmotivated. It will collapse even the most successful team, because they see other people doing nothing. They see other people causing problems. They see other people being filled with drama and ridiculousness, and they lose their motivation. And that is the key. You will lose even the most highly motivated team members because they won't want to deal with the unmotivated person. So cut them early when you know it's time, but always make sure you have your documentation lined up so that when it's time, you know you're doing the right thing and you have it backed up in writing, everything ready to go, documentation ready to roll for whatever may come next. So I am here. Everybody, it is the 1st of June. Have a fantastic month. Summer is coming, and I'm going to say this now because it is June 1st. Now is the time to start thinking about September. We have 3 months. Start getting ready for September now, because it hits us every year and everybody goes, oh my gosh, it's September 1st and our schedule is terrible. Start planning it now. And I'm going to give you a couple reminders throughout the next month or two to start planning for September. So I am here. Everybody have a great day. Have a fantastic month. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, June 2nd, and this is our morning drive live. I want to talk today a little bit about treatment plan presentation. Now, I am by no means a treatment plan presentation master, but I have picked up a few things over the years that I thought would be helpful when you are presenting treatment. So, number one, and, this is for any type of sales. And what we have to realize is when you are presenting treatment, whether you want to be or not, we are in sales. Okay, it's a sales job presenting treatment. And, I taught a course a couple years ago called Sell is Not a 4-Letter Word. And for some reason, when we talk about sales, we, get these visions of the used car salesman, sleazy guys with bad toupees and terrible suits trying to sell us on things we don't need. And sometimes, if you're selling a product that is actually necessary, that is actually helpful, it removes or should remove some of that stigma, because really, we're selling something that people need. We're selling health. We're selling the ability to chew and, enjoy your food. I have had 87-year-old patients come in and say, yes, I want to spend $30,000 rehabbing my mouth because I want to spend whatever time I have left, whether it's 1 year or 5 years or 15 years, whatever it may be, I want to spend that time enjoying my food. So, the first kind of tidbit that I want to put out there is don't ever make assumptions. I have seen dentists who have had that 89-year-old patient come in and say, I want to spend $30,000 and fix my mouth. So even if it's only 6 months, I want to spend the last 6 months of my life eating corn on the cob and fresh apples picked off of a tree. And, that can be hard to do with removable dentures. So, don't make assumptions that somebody isn't going to want something or is going to want something, but spend the time, just a few minutes, to get to know the person. If you have a treatment plan or a treatment coordinator, a treatment plan presenter in your office, they shouldn't be in the back on the phone with an insurance company. They should be out talking to the patients, even sitting in the waiting room. And I'm not talking about teeth, but find out what's going on in their life. How things are going. Did they just have grandchildren or great-grandchildren or children, or get a new job, or just retire? There's a lot to that, because when you learn that, you then know where they are in life and in their head. And knowing that helps us present treatment more effectively. The second thing is, know your audience. You are going to be presenting treatment to a varied number of people. And in one day, you could present treatment to a mechanic, to a plumber, to a small business owner, maybe they're a mechanic and a small business owner, to a neurosurgeon. And the level of explanation, the level of detail they're going to want, the amount of science is going to vary based on who you're talking about. I've presented to college professors who taught biology, and they wanted to know about the mechanics of the implant and what was going to happen, and they really want to know the science behind it. And then I've presented to other people, and their concern is, how long is it going to last and how much is it going to cost? So you have to know your audience to know how to present. There is no, here's a script to follow. Follow this script and you will be successful every single time. That doesn't exist, because every person is different, and you need to tailor your presentation to them. When you go into a car dealership, and I hate to use the car dealership, but there's a lot of similarities between car dealerships and dental offices. You go into a car dealership, and they're immediately sizing you up to decide what's going to be important to this person. Is price going to be the factor? Is how quick we can get a car or the car they want? Are features going to be more important than price? Are they willing to pay a little more? Are they very budget conscious? They're immediately determining that about you from the number one interaction. And they spend hours and hours and hours every year, every month, every week training on that. So, we need to be able to present to the right way to the right person. Have your options available. Somebody had posted in the group, I don't know if it was last night or this morning, because all my days run together, but about what do you say to a patient when they say, wow, that's a lot of money? There isn't a right or wrong reply to that. It's going to vary based on the person. And, you have to present the treatment as it is. And if their response is, wow, that's a lot of money, your response is going to vary. It could be, yes, it is a lot of money. It's definitely a lot of money, but look at the investment. Look at what you're getting in return. You're getting another 20 years of chewing your food. You're getting, think about how many bites that is. If it's somebody who's into numbers, I'm going to hit them with, how many chews that's going to get them. And if you break it down and say, listen, it's only 1/1000th of a cent for every time you take a bite, that's nothing. So you have to know who you're presenting to. Like I said, I am by no means a treatment plan presentation professional. But, take some classes, learn. There's a lot of good treatment plan presentation courses out there. Take one or two. Learn the pearls, the little tidbits that they give. And, if you take one or two from each thing, it's going to add up. But the most important thing is customize it for you. Make it your words. Reading from a script will never create a successful salesperson. You have to take that script and make it your own, and then be able to customize it on the fly for each patient. But that all starts with getting to know the patient, getting to know about them and where they are in their journey, where they are in their life, to be able to address what's going to be important to them before they even have the chance to ask the question. That's the important part. So I am here. Everybody have a great Wednesday, and I will see you tomorrow. Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, June 3rd, and this is our morning drive live. So, I want to talk today about the importance of having all of your documentation lined up. So, today's topic is basically brought to us because we had a client yesterday who had a number of procedures denied for a patient. Now, this office is out of network, 100% out of network. And the services were denied because the X-ray for the tooth number we were looking at, in this case it was specifically number 9, the X-rays showing tooth number 9 did not show the entire tooth. They showed the apex, the root tip, they showed the root, and they showed 80% of the crown. But when the X-ray was taken, the occlusal surface of number 9 was cut off on the image. And the insurance company denied it 3 times. We got a supervisor from the insurance company on the phone, and the reason for the denial was that the entire tooth was not visible in the image. And remember, this office is out of network 100%. So, it's important, I thought it was important to remind everybody of what the documentation means. Remember, when the insurance company is asking for an X-ray, the vast majority of the time, they are looking for an X-ray that shows the entire tooth. The crown of the tooth, the root of the tooth, and the apex or the root tip of the tooth. the entire tooth. So that's super, super important for us to remember when we're taking x-rays, when you're looking at the x-rays. You know, if you're an assistant or a hygienist or a doctor who is taking the x-ray, you have to remember that they are looking for the entire tooth. They want to see the whole thing, no matter what. But we should be taking those images, we should be taking those x-rays or intraoral pictures, whatever it is, on pretty much everything we do at this point. If you're not gonna take an x-ray, take an intraoral picture. Take something that shows why you did what you did. So this isn't only important for insurance companies, but also for being able to prove in the future, if need be, why you did what you did. 20% of everything we do in the dental office is CYA. And we need to remember that and make sure we have the right backup, the right documentation before we do that, before we do the work. So please make sure you know what the insurance company requirements are, because what I will tell you is this: those documentation requirements, those, we require an x-ray for this, an intraoral picture for that, perio charting for this, those apply whether you are in or out of network. Now, if you're out of network and insurance doesn't pay it, guess what? The patient's responsible in full. But the patient's not going to be super happy if you estimated that insurance was going to pay $500 towards something and they paid nothing. And then the patient's going to call the insurance company, and the insurance company is going to tell the patient, we're not paying it because the dentist didn't have a required x-ray of that tooth. Or they're going to say their x-ray was not diagnostic in quality. So basically the insurance company is telling them the dental office didn't do their job, or they did their job but they didn't do it correctly. That image is missing something. So no matter what, whether you're in or out of network, make sure you're at least familiar with the documentation requirements that the insurance companies have. A number of the PPO provider manuals are in the group files, and that will list what documentation they are looking for each service. So we know Aetna requires a pre-op and post-op, either x-ray or intraoral picture, for every single crown buildup. It's absolutely required. If you're submitting them without that and they're getting paid, you're incredibly lucky, because they're getting denied all over the place because that's their requirement. So you want to make sure you know what those requirements are. And believe me, they vary from office or from insurance company to insurance company. They vary sometimes greatly from insurance company to insurance company. So what I will typically do, and I do this with everything, and this was a discussion we just had in the group on a different topic, but I take the strictest of the guidelines. So, for example, Aetna requiring pre-op and post-op IO pics for a buildup. If that's Aetna's requirement, that is the stricter of all the requirements. I make that part of my system. That is what we do every time we do a buildup. And people will say, oh, well, we only want to do it with patients with Aetna because they're the only ones that require them. You have to have consistency. And it's going to happen that one time or two times in a year, a patient has Aetna, the assistant doesn't check, bam, now you've lost the opportunity to take your pre-op IO pick because you've already done the build-up. You have no pre-op pick. There's nothing you can do as far as getting that paid because you don't have the required documentation. So we just want to make sure we know what the documentation is that's required, and we make the strictest requirement part of our system across the board. No matter what insurance a patient has, even if they're a cash patient, we follow the system because it's all about the systems. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Make sure you have your documentation. Make sure your images are of diagnostic quality and show the entire tooth. When you're taking a PA shows the entire tooth. Crown, root, and root tip. Make sure you have everything properly documented and together. So I am here. Everybody have a great Thursday, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, June 4th, and this is our morning drive live. I want to talk today about something we've talked about a little bit before, but definitely deserves a lot more discussion. And that is being or going out of network with insurance companies. If you are currently in network and you are thinking about going out of network, or you are out of network with a lot of insurances or all insurances, and how you communicate that. So there's a couple different topics within that. And we'll start with the first one, which is making the decision to go out of network. And that's not something that should be done lightly. It's not something that I believe every single dental office in the country can achieve. I don't think we're ever going to see a time where 100% of dental offices are out of network. I don't think that will ever happen again. But in a lot of areas, it is something that is attainable. And there was a post last night that we're going to talk about in a minute, but about Delta Dental sending the checks to the patients and not to an out-of-network provider. And, that's one of the things that you have to take into account, you have to weigh when you're making that determination, is how you want that to be handled. Do you want that to happen? Do you want the patients to pay you in full upfront and then get reimbursed whatever they get reimbursed by the insurance company, and you take that you take the overhead of dealing with the insurance company out of your practice? If you're removing that part of the overhead and you're charging more for the patients that you're seeing because you're getting paid your full fee instead of a ridiculously discounted rate from the insurance company, well, you can see less patients and make more money because you're getting paid more and you've reduced your overhead. So you don't need to maintain 100% of those patients. Everybody gets very caught up in how many patients did you keep? What percentage of patients left? How many did you lose? As long as you're breaking even, looking at net income numbers, it really doesn't matter what the percentage is. Yes, it's definitely something we want to know. It's something we want to look at, and we want to prepare for our worst case scenarios. But you have to remember you're saving money by removing that aspect of work, that overhead of calling the insurance companies, chasing outstanding claims, resubmitting claims 3 or 4 times, prepping all the documentation, so on and so forth. That overhead, that amount of time, and it really is true, time is money. So every minute you spend on the phone with an insurance company chasing a claim costs the practice money. There's a cost to that. And we want to make sure from a business standpoint, and this truly is a business decision. This isn't a personal decision. This isn't I hate insurance companies and what they stand for, so, screw them all, I'm going out of network. It's not an emotional decision. It truly is a business decision. And, if you can remove all those aspects of your overhead, increase your income for even 50% of the patients who decide to stay and pay your full fee and get reimbursed by the insurance company, you can actually work less hours, have less overhead, and make the same, if not more, money. But you have to know what those numbers are. The other part of that is, like I said, you have to weigh what type of practice you want to be. And yes, there are offices who, treat their patients like family, and that's wonderful. And I think we should be honest and upfront with them and tell them what's going on. But you also have to understand, for me, an out-of-network office submits the claims, accepts assignment of benefits, works on the outstanding claims, so on and so forth. That's an out-of-network office. A fee-for-service office will submit the claims for you, but that is where they end. They don't chase claims. They do not accept assignment of benefits from any insurance company. You pay at the time of service. If you have benefits, they get reimbursed directly to you as the patient. And the practice doesn't ever deal with any insurance company in any way ever. That's kind of the difference in my mind between being out of network and being fee for service. A fee for service practice doesn't deal with insurance at all. We'll submit the claim for you, but that's it. If they say, oh, we never got it, here's a copy, deal with it. We have absolutely nothing to do with your insurance company. There's no verification process. You pay us at the time of service 100% of the time. You pay our fee for our service. Fee for service. That's the way it works. So that's how I kind of put it in my head when I talk about it. That's the difference for me between out of network and fee for service. So now the other part of this, and this was something that came up on the post last night about being out of network or going out of network, is how it's presented to the patients. And there are a number of ways to do it. Somebody in the group last night posted a great letter that was sent out to all of their patients. Somebody else said, well, we didn't do a letter, so it failed, and now we had to go back in network because we got too scared of losing too many patients. It really is how you present it to your patients. I mean, listen, like I said, I do not believe every single office can go, even out of network, successfully. There has to be some practices that will be in network that will accept the reduced fees, because there are patients who will only go to those providers. And that's not well, it's because they don't value dentistry, or it's because they don't value what we do, or they don't appreciate the time and effort that we put into running a dental office and all the behind the scenes work. And it has absolutely nothing to do with that, and everything to do with people live different lifestyles. And, for us, for, some of us watching this video or recording this video, if it costs me an extra $100 to go to the dentist twice a year because they're out of network and that's who I want to go to, guess what? It's not the end of the world. But for actually the largest percentage of the country, for the vast majority of people living in the United States, that $100 difference is the difference between, does my family eat this week or not? So it is a difference. And you have to make the decision what type of practice you want to be. And, you can be a fee for service, you can be an out of network, you can be an in network, you can be an HMO, you can be a Medicaid office. They all can be profitable. You just have to decide which one you want to be and work that model. But as far as making the transition going from in network to out of network, it is 100% about being honest and upfront with your patients. If you're not going to tell them and all of a sudden they walk in, you have them sign a treatment plan and they say, whoa, 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 why do I owe an extra $120 for my visit this time? It's for a cleaning. That's always covered. Well, we've since gone out of network, and now you're here and you've had your prophy and exam, so you owe us the $120 balance bill. You're going to lose the vast majority of your patients. And it's not because they don't want to spend the $120. If somebody did that to me, it wouldn't be about the $120. It would be about, you weren't honest and upfront with me, and now I cannot trust you. And we spend so much time trying to get the insurance companies out of the relationship between the dentist and the patient. And now you just showed that patient that you can't be trusted. So the insurance company has to be there to protect them. So, that's just the way I see it, the way I look at it. I think, being upfront and honest with your patients about your network participation status is super, super important, because once you break that line of trust in one area, you cannot get it back in any area. A breaking of a trust in 30 seconds can take years and years to rebuild. So that is it. It is Friday. Everybody have a great weekend. I'm here. Have a good weekend. I will see you guys on Monday.